5-year-old boy stares at a pocket compass in his hand, the one with a magnetic needle in a round case. He tilts it, shakes it, moves it, yet the needle always points north, as if controlled by an invisible force. Something about this fascinates him. What is moving it, he wonders. That started the quest and curiosity for this 5-year-old to uncover the hidden, silent, unknown, and unseen mysteries of the universe. That boy was Albert Einstein. Welcome to Soulful Stories, where we journey through the lives of remarkable minds who shaped our world. Through their struggles, triumphs, and powerful ideas, we discover timeless lessons that can awaken our own genius and inspire us to see the world and ourselves a little differently. Today, we dive into the story of Albert Einstein, his struggles, his triumphs, and his insatiable curiosity that shaped his discoveries and transformed the way we understand our universe. Einstein was born in 1879 in Ulm, Germany, to a middle-class Jewish family. From the start, he was very different. As a child, he spoke so late that his parents were actually concerned something was wrong. Baby Albert didn't speak until he was nearly 4. And when he finally did, he asked questions like, why is the sky blue? Why does the moon not float into outer space? And such questions would be one of the many that actually shaped his lifelong curiosity. School, however, was not his favorite place. Imagine a young boy sitting at his desk, daydreaming about the unseen forces in the universe, while the teacher is force-feeding facts to the class. Einstein hated the rigid authoritarian style of teaching in Germany. He often clashed with his teachers, one of whom reprimanded him, saying, "You'll never amount to anything." But young Albert had his own way of learning. Instead of following the rules, he spent hours reading books on math, science, and philosophy. At the age of 10, a family friend introduced him to Bernstein's popular books on natural science. These books explained very complex ideas in simple ways, and that was a turning point for Einstein. He was hooked. He spent hours studying books that were way beyond his grade level. By 15, he had mastered calculus. He spent a lot of time in libraries. His classmates started calling him German variations of nerd, big bore, straight arrow, but that didn't bother him. At the age of 16, he dropped out of school and moved out of Germany so that he didn't have to serve in the army. His parents were concerned that their son would be a school dropout, but Einstein kept himself immersed in the world of science. At 16, he wrote his first theoretical physics essay about magnetic fields. That essay was later submitted to the Zurich Polytechnic School in Switzerland. They were impressed. They offered him a seat, although he had not even completed his high school. The institute said they would admit him if he could pass its entrance exams. He aced in mathematics and physics, but he failed at French literature and biology. He had to retake it the next year and he passed. He really enjoyed the progressive approach to education in Switzerland. It encouraged individuality, visual thinking, using observations to reach conclusions, and that promoted independent thinking. The institute also had laboratories, but Einstein was not into laboratories. He was in for what he called thought experiments, something he didn't need a lab for. I'll give you an example of one of his most famous thought experiments. One afternoon, while riding his bicycle, he started imagining what it would be like to ride alongside a beam of light. If he traveled at the speed of light, would he see the waves stationary in space? This question fascinated him and occupied his mind for the next 10 years. It led him to question the prevailing theories of space and time, planting the seeds for what later became the theory of relativity. As bright as Einstein was, he was a bit of a rebellion. He absolutely hated exams because he thought one had to cram all this book stuff into one's mind whether one liked it or not. He thought the more important thing was solving puzzles about the universe. But somehow he did manage to pass most of his courses. Can you believe it? One of his math professors called him a lazy dog because he avoided the challenging math classes. And rebellion can sometimes miss the mark because later in life he regretted not attending those classes and paying more attention to it because the theoretical physics which he truly enjoyed requires a lot of advanced mathematics. Living in Zurich was wonderful. It was a happy time for him. He loved the city nestled among tall green mountains, lots of fresh air, and a bustling center of commerce. He would discuss physics and mathematics, sipping coffee, eating sausage with his friends in Swiss cafes. He also met his wife while in the Polytechnic school. She was also as ambitious as Einstein and very passionate about science and math. He graduated from Polytechnic and hold your breath here. In his graduating class of 5, he ranked 4th. After graduation, he wanted to get an academic job, but none of his professors agreed to write a letter of recommendation. Rather, some seemed to badmouth him behind his back. Months turned into years, and he was turned down for every academic position. He was also pretty bad at job applications. However, he never ignored his passion and he kept up with his independent study, always questioning and disputing the work of others. He actually spent a lot of his time writing letters to other scientists, pointing out their mistakes. Around that time, unfortunately, Einstein's family business went bankrupt. In search of money, Einstein was even looking for jobs in schools. He advertised free trial lessons for school students, but no luck. Finally, after so much struggle, a friend of his was able to get him a low paying clerical job at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern. Imagine this. The man who would later be hailed as the genius of the century was jobless for months and forced to take a low-paying position of a clerk at the Swiss Patent Office. But here's where things actually get interesting. The job, which might have seemed like a dead end to many, actually became his secret weapon. Einstein spent his time reviewing patent applications. Did the inventions actually work? Were they in fact new? And did everything make sense scientifically? This was a delicious task for a rebel who questioned everything. It also gave him a unique perspective, thinking outside the traditional constraints of academia. It sharpened his writing skills. He learned how to explain complex designs, starting from very simple, clear principles. As sharp as he was, he would complete his work in 3 to 4 hours and then use the rest of his time to do his own personal studies. He started publishing scientific papers while still a patent clerk. But things didn't come so easy for him. Most of the physics community ignored him. The scientists who bothered to react only criticized him with questions like, "Who is this guy?" a patent clerk? However, one scientist, Max Planck, the founder of quantum theory, one of the most influential physicists of his generation, really praised him. He even wrote a personal letter to Einstein requesting to meet with him. Einstein was thrilled. He published 6 papers that year and 10 more the following year. He still was a clerk at the patent office, and one of his friends sympathized jokingly, "History is full of bad jokes." Meanwhile, he continued to apply for academic positions but only received rejections. He could not even get a job as a teacher in a high school. It was only after 9 long years that he was offered a satisfactory academic job at the University of Bern. However, his lectures were poorly attended, sometimes by only one student. He was very disorganized and not well prepared. Where was his focus? Einstein passionately worked on his proposed theories, his favorite one being the theory of relativity. He knew the theory had some flaws and it needed to be reworked day after day. Einstein kept pounding away at the problem. For every problem he solved, new ones appeared. His stress levels soared, he had stomach aches, but he was determined to get the equations. Now, we are talking about very complicated equations, not a one liner. These were extremely complex, multiple page long theoretical physics equations. Only other genius physicists could grasp them. Some of his friends commented that this theory is absolutely phenomenal and could transform the world. Einstein was filled with confidence from their feedback, and he, in his heart, always believed that this theory is just too beautiful, mathematically speaking, to be false. Einstein's theories were no longer just ideas. Slowly, other scientists started doing experiments to prove them. And finally, as his theories were confirmed, newspaper headlines across the world were full of praise. New theory of the universe, revolution in science, Newtonian ideas overthrown, Einstein triumphs were some of these headlines from London to New York to all over the world. Finally, at age 40, he was a famous scientist. He had eclipsed Isaac Newton. He was considered a celebrity scientist. In one of his papers, he made a shocking claim. Time is not absolute. It stretches and shrinks depending on speed. This to me was mind blowing. So, to give an example, imagine there are two twins. One stays on Earth while the other travels in space at the speed of light. When the space traveler twin returns, they would be younger than their twin on Earth. Time itself had been bent. And then his other big discovery, the equation that literally shook the world, E equals mc square, basically proposing that energy and mass are interchangeable. And this formula actually held the key to nuclear energy. Einstein was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics in the year 1922. However, this was not about his work on the theory of relativity. It was for his work on photoelectric effect, which explains how light can release electrons from a surface. A key concept in understanding that light is made of both wave and particle. But fame in science didn't protect him from the world's troubles. As a Jewish scientist in Germany, he became a target for the Nazis, who branded his work Jewish physics. and forced him to flee to the US in 1933. In the United States, he worked at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, New Jersey. Initially, he had mixed feelings about America, but he adored the freedom that America gave him. And he firmly believed that without freedom, there was no creativity in science or anything. Then came one of the most controversial moments of his life. One day, Einstein's friend, physicist Leo Szilard, shared something deeply troubling with him. He told Einstein that German scientists were working on a terrifying idea, a bomb. But not just any bomb, a weapon powered by splitting atoms. Together, they discussed a possibility that had only recently been imagined in the world of physics, a chain reaction. Here's how it works. If you could split one atom, it would release some energy and knock into other atoms. Splitting them, those splitting would release more energy and knock other atoms, splitting them, and more in a chain reaction. But how much energy would this release? That's where Einstein's famous equation, E equals mc squared, comes in. It reveals something astonishing. A tiny amount of matter, when converted into energy, could release an incredible amount of power. So much, in fact, that it could obliterate an entire city. Einstein was alarmed, deeply alarmed. He realized the Nazis under Hitler might be the first to build this weapon. That had to be stopped. So in 1939, Einstein did something extraordinary. He wrote a letter, not to a scientist, but to the President of the United States, Franklin Roosevelt. In it, he warned of this new danger and urged the US to start serious research into atomic energy before it was too late. That later became one of the most powerful pieces of paper in history. It helped launch the Manhattan Project, a top-secret mission that led to the creation of the first atomic bombs. Einstein, the man of peace and science, had now set in motion the race for the deadliest weapon the world had ever known. When these bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Einstein was deeply troubled. He later said, "Had I known that Germans would not succeed in producing an atomic bomb, I would not have lifted a finger." The bomb was the exact opposite of what he saw as the purpose of science. Einstein found it unbearable, and his work was playing a role in such horrific destruction. So immediately he formed and headed the Emergency Committee of Atomic Scientists working toward world peace and against any future use of nuclear weapons. He pushed for a unifying world government that would impose strict controls on nuclear technology. He spent a major part of his later years advocating for peace. Einstein was never rich. All the money he received in winning the Nobel Prize, he gave it to his ex-wife. But he didn't care about money. He didn't even know how to drive a car. He thought it was too complicated. His clothes were weird: cotton sweatshirts, baggy corduroy pants, and no socks. He was so well known that people on the street would often stop and ask for an explanation of his theory of relativity. But he figured out a way to excuse himself and say, "I'm sorry, I'm always mistaken for Professor Einstein." But the wonder he felt as a child playing with a compass never left him. There are so many areas of life today that show the influence of his work. Invention of television would have been impossible without his work on the photoelectric effect. Quantum theory led to the invention of so many modern electronics like cell phones, computers, lasers, barcodes, scanners, smoke alarms, the red exit signals in malls and theaters, medical devices like PET scans, GPS systems. They all take into account the effects of speed and gravity. Nuclear power, fiber optics, space travel wouldn't be here without him. Hot topics from research continue to flow from his work. For example, the Big Bang, dark energy that speeds up the expansion of the universe. His theoretical equations actually made physics very trendy. Nature shows us only the tail of the lion, he once said. But I do not doubt that the lion belongs to it, even though he cannot at once reveal himself because of his enormous size. His relentless pursuit to understand the connections of the universe continues to amaze scientists till today. On April 18, 1955, at the age of 76, Einstein passed away. His brain was later studied, revealing an unusually high number of connections in areas linked to imagination and thought. Well, are we surprised? So, what can we learn from Einstein's story? That genius isn't about being born extraordinary. It's about questioning, imagining, and never giving up, even when the world doesn't believe in you. Curiosity drove Albert Einstein all his life. And because of his curiosity, he created theories that have completely transformed the way we understand the universe. He said, "I have no special talents. I'm only passionately curious." When I read the story to my son, it really sparked his imagination. And he soon would ask us questions like, what happens to the level of gravity as we drill miles deep into the earth? Is it more? Is it less? I don't know. I was just happy that he was starting his own thought experiments. As for me, what captured my heart was the fact that Einstein was quite disliked in school. He failed his entrance exam for the Polytechnic. He was rejected from academic jobs for nearly a decade. And yet this simple but passionate man continued to believe in himself, even when his parents, his peers did not. He did go through bitter and hurtful times, but his sister had shared that he would play the violin, especially Mozart during those times. He took refuge in music. His patience was rewarding. As we all know, he's considered to be one of the most brilliant minds in the history of science. He was named as the person of the century. He believed in himself. So let's not be afraid to follow our passion. We may be surprised where it can take us. We don't have to be the next Einstein, but we can be the best version of ourselves and unravel our unique gifts. Let's end this episode with his famous words. There are only two ways to live your life. One, as though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is a miracle. Thanks for listening to Soulful Stories. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone who loves a good story. And remember, curiosity is the key to the universe. You, my podcast friend, are a miracle. Why? Because I'm learning to see everything as a miracle. And that feels so much better than the other way around. And you know what? Einstein continued working on his final dream, a unified theory that would explain all forces of nature. But it remains unfinished in case any of you are excited to take that project on. Take care. See you next time.